Set for the much-anticipated gambling referendum. Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight. I'm Kish Latterly. Thanks so much for joining us. Topping the news tonight, in 1 month's time, Bahamians will be called on to decide whether or not to legalize so-called numbers, which have evolved from an under-the-radar activity to a regular pastime uninhibited by its illegality. Prime Minister Perry Christie told Parliament today, don't bet on government influence in the poll, which will have one focus. Carla Palmer explains.
It's a campaign promise to be fulfilled, and come December 3rd next month, it will be the anticipated referendum on web shop gaming. According to Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie, there will be only one question asked of the eligible Bahamian electorate, and that is whether or not they support the legalization and regulation of web shops or web cafes in the Bahamas.
Based on the considered advice of the government's UK-based international specialist consultants, it is no longer considered that a national lottery would be commercially viable at this time. Thus, lotteries will continue to be illegal for the indefinite future unless, of course, certificates of exemption are issued from time to time under the Lotteries and Gaming Act, as indeed has been the historical practice for special single event purposes considered worthy by the competent authority, such as church, bazaar, raffles, and the like. What has been pointed out to me is the Lotteries and Gaming Act currently provides for lotteries, and that lotteries, so to speak, exist today when we give churches the opportunity to conduct those things that they do at their church bazaars, raffles.
Similarly, says the Prime Minister, there will be no extension of casino gambling. No additional casino licenses will be granted, and the law will continue to be upheld against Bahamians gambling in casinos.
To be completely clear, therefore, the forthcoming referendum will focus only on web shop gaming.
Prime Minister Christie says, contrary to reports, his government will maintain a position of complete neutrality on the referendum matter, not campaigning for or against either side, or offer any encouragement for a yes or no vote. The Prime Minister says the same process which applies to general elections will apply to the referendum. All persons who were eligible to vote in the last general election will be able to vote.
As for persons who were not registered to vote in the last general election, but who may wish to vote in the referendum, they too will be able to vote in the referendum, provided that they register at least 10 days prior to the date fixed for the referendum. This is specifically provided for in the Constitutional Referendum Act. The Parliamentary Commissioner's Office will be making public announcements in due course as the registration of new voters, the location of the polling places that will be set up to accommodate voters in the referendum.
Should the majority of people vote yes to the referendum, Prime Minister Christie says the government would limit web shop licenses to a small number to ensure the regulatory infrastructure of the Gaming Board. Also, he says applicants would have to meet stringent requirements, including a license fee of not less than $1 million, coupled with a performance bond. Additionally, web shops would also be required to contribute to the cost of implementing the new laws and regulations for web shops and be made to introduce and maintain a treatment and rehabilitation program for gambling addicts. Should the voting electorate reject the referendum, Prime Minister Christie says the government will take the necessary steps to ensure that our gaming laws are enforced.
That all unlicensed operators of web shops would be closed down and their owners and operators prosecuted to the full extent of the law. This is not a trifling matter.
I'm Carla Palmer for the ZNS News Network.
The Bahamas Christian Council has been campaigning against a gambling referendum in this country for the past few months. But now that Prime Minister Perry Christie has announced the date for the referendum, the BCA says it will have to amp up its fight. President Ranford Patterson is taking issue with the December 3rd date announced by the Prime Minister today. He says enough time has not been given for this matter to be properly addressed by all interested parties. Reverend Patterson says instead of the question of whether or not web shops should be legalized, the question should be, do you support the legalization and regulation of the illegal gambling operations currently conducted by web shops? Now, if Bahamians vote yes, the BCA believes that the gambling industry would be expanded to the point where it would only benefit a few individuals who are currently conducting illegal gambling enterprises at the expense of the poor. Furthermore, the BCA says it's not buying the government's justification that the proposed legalization on gambling would increase government revenue by $15 million annually. The BCA is appealing to all church leaders to unite against the legalization of web shops and to encourage their members to vote no. The Free National Movement says the government's decision to go ahead with the referendum at this time is regrettable. In a statement released today, the party says the government has decided to ignore the wise advice of religious and civic leaders and throw all caution to the wind. The FNM, calling the referendum a rushed initiative, says it believes that there needs to be deliberate and engaging dialogue between the government and the Bahamian citizenry, which would demonstrate the impact of legalized web gambling in the Bahamas. The FNM contends that the Bahamian people are being asked to buy a pig in a poke. The government, it says, will be asking them to say yes to the legalization of web shops, and the government will work out the details later. That, the statement says, is unacceptable. Further, the party says the government insists that it has no position on the issue. According to the Prime Minister, the FNM says his government and party have a position of complete neutrality. But the party notes that it doesn't believe this, since in his communication, the Prime Minister clearly outlines many of the possible benefits of legalized web shops while conveniently glossing over the potentially significant negative ones. Also from the House of Assembly today, Prime Minister Christie announced that new North Abaco Member of Parliament Renardo Curry has been assigned to the post of Parliamentary Secretary in the office of the Prime Minister at Abaco with immediate effect.
He is a young man of great promise, an individual of deep spiritual and moral convictions. He believes passionately in the Bahamas and his beloved island of Abaco in particular. Indeed, he possesses all of the energy and talents that are needed to help take Abaco to greater heights economically and socially. He understands the challenge Abaconians face. He's eager to get to work so that he can play the leading role in meeting those challenges.
Now, Prime Minister Christie says Mr. Curry will be stationed all year round in the newly constructed government's complex in Abaco. He explains that the economic and social challenges facing the island at this time warrant that.
Under ordinary circumstances, I would have been disinclined to increase the number of parliamentary secretaries. However, I am firmly of the view that the appointment of the Honourable Member for North Abaco as the parliamentary secretary is highly advisable at this point in time. Abaco has the third largest economy in the Bahamas. It is surpassed only by New Providence and Grand Bahama. Moreover, there are unique challenges and opportunities facing the Abaconian economy that require focused attention both at the national and local level. The same applies to a broad range of social challenges facing Abaco today as well.
Now, Mr. Curry says the appointment will give Abaconians a greater voice around the table. In fact, the North Abaco MP told reporters that outside Parliament today that the new position will include a focus on education.
Working with local government, Mr. Chairman at my township, I've had an opportunity to work closely with different government agencies. So I'm very much prepared. The thing is just making sure the system works for the people that live there, those that want to better themselves. I'm going to be working closely with different agencies to make sure that happens, create opportunity. So I'm very much prepared for that position.
Now, the existence of shanty towns on Abaco has long been a challenge which Mr. Curry says will be dealt with during his term in office.
Well, one of the things the Prime Minister did when he visited Abaco was visit one of the communities called Sandbanks. I visited several times during my campaign and seeing the conditions of a lot of the people that are living there. I'm in full support of really putting people in a better living environment. So anything to do to change the standard of living in there, I'm in full support of it. So of course this government will make that first initial step, starting hopefully right there in Abaco.
In other news tonight, already compromised infrastructure in Cat Island has taken another beating from Hurricane Sandy, the local clinic among them. In this report, Janaea Noel Ferguson speaks to medical officials about the impact it's having on the community.
Many buildings in Cat Island needed serious repair after Hurricane Irene ravaged the area. The situation was further compounded during Hurricane Sandy. Cat Island's clinic was destroyed and had to be relocated to the nurses' residence. But this temporary fix still poses a challenge for the medical staff.
Our only concern it's not really built to be a clinic, so accessibility is kind of difficult, especially in emergencies. But apart from that, during the hurricane, I guess we were more or less prepared as best as we could be. We had as much medication as we have needed, right? And we had basically had enough supplies.
The local doctor was also concerned about the other clinics on the island. He hopes that work can begin on the facilities in the near future.
Now, in terms of other clinics, some of our clinics are old and needed some repairs, so our own concern was that maybe they were going to get much damage during the storm, but thankfully that did not happen. Most of them were able to withstand the hurricane and are actually ready for use.
Nurse Lilith Francis noted that despite the mounting issues, they do their best to prepare for a storm by packing care kits with medication for residents at the shelter. But if a serious emergency happens there, Francis believes it would be difficult to provide adequate medical assistance.
Getting people to the facility will be a challenge for us.
Okay. Why is that?
The distance, and then water in the road, and you need transportation and all like that. But we were prepared. We had enough medications and medical supplies. We were prepared in that sense.
Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Well, still to come in the Bahamas tonight, the Middle Managers Union at BTC marching on the CEO. Still to come, the latest in the Elizabeth Thompson saga. And now for our Sir Sidney Poitier trivia. What movie marked the directorial debut of Sir Sidney? We'll have the answer just after this.
This portion of the news was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.